Hello and welcome to this video. In this video we're going to be looking at Azure Resource Manager again, and we're going to be looking at a new feature called Azure Resource Manager Policies. Now these policies allow us to control what type and size of objects can be created in our resource groups. So if you've got a resource group and you only want a particular size of virtual machine to be used inside there, we can. If you've got a resource group and you only want objects to be placed inside one or two regions, we can do that now. This feature, we've been looking for this feature for a while really. The only downside to it right now is that we've got to use PowerShell to manage this feature, and for me that's not really a downside, but if you're not that familiar with PowerShell, I do recommend that you have a look at PowerShell first. So let's demonstrate this feature on my subscription and so it works. So if I open up the ISE, so here we are in the integrated scripted environment, and we've got a bit of code going on here that's going to control and allow us to create these Azure Resource Manager policies. Now the first 4 lines of this code are all about connecting to my subscription. So we've got the add Azure item account command that allows us to log into our subscription, and then 3 lines allow us to save and store credentials that can be used later on by the policies to add the policies, create the policies inside our subscription. So execute the first 4 lines against your subscription, and then we get to line 7 where we're actually then creating our policy itself. So we need to create a definition for the policy. This includes a name, what the policy is going to be called. It contains a description of the policy, and then the policy itself, what I want the policy to do. Okay, so if we look at line 7, we see we're going to store this policy in a variable called $policies for use later on. So if we scroll down, our policy itself is from line 7 down to line 18. Now if you're not familiar with PowerShell, I do recommend that you go off and play on PowerShell first. Ideally as well, if you're not familiar with JSON, you'll start to look at JSON courses, JSON videos, and get to grips with that. But you can just type this code as is, execute it, and just play around with it, which is the best way to learn this stuff anyway. So in my policy, we've got line, again, 8 through 18, this actual policy itself. So mine is policy, and we've got the squiggly brackets then, and inside the squiggly brackets, we add our code block. And we've got a sort of basic statement here. If, and then if the field location does not contain North Europe or West Europe, then deny. So its basic policy is really saying that unless the location attribute of the object you're trying to create contains either North, Yes, Europe, then deny that object from being created. So this policy then is an example of a policy that if I apply to a resource group will mean that only these 2 regions can be selected. So if I take line 7 through 18 here and just run that selection to create a policy called RM Resources Policy Definition, then we scroll down to line 20. Now line 20 is the policy assignment lines. So in line 20 and 21, we're executing a PowerShell command that's going to take our policy we just created and assign it to a resource group. Now in my case the resource group is called RM Resources. It's worth pointing out that these policies can be applied at various levels of your subscription. Now just a little aside here, line 20 and 21, these lines are actually one long command. This little flick here at the end of line 20 just allows me to carry on writing the line on the next line down. So instead of one big long line going off screen, I can write in 2 sections. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that before. So if I run line 20 and 21, so we're taking this policy now and assigning it to this resource group called RM Resources. Now that resource group is already created inside my subscription. So if you haven't got that already, this command would fail. So with the policy created and the policy now assigned to the resource group, let's go have a look at the resource group and see what we can create. So if I sign into Azure now, and we'll go to the ARM portal. So I'm in the ARM portal. I've connected and opened up my resource group called ARM Resources. And let's try adding a virtual machine inside here. So if I say add, we'll say I want to add a Windows Server. Just running 2012 data center for now. It really doesn't matter what object you try to add. It's the location attribute that we're particularly keen in this example. I'm going to create a VM in Resource Manager mode, and we'll just fill in the basic configuration for the virtual machine. Pretty much accepting most defaults, but it's the location attribute. And with the location attribute, I'm going to choose a location in North America and see if it lets me create this virtual machine. So when this pane loads up, we'll be able to do this. So here we've got the virtual machine pane loaded up, so we'll just fill in some basic details. Place it inside our resource group. And for location, I'm going to choose one of the, well, anything outside North and West Europe. So I'll choose North Central US. And we'll OK that. The Azure portal has been a little bit slow today. So we've okayed that, so we've got the basic settings done. We've chosen a region that's in Europe, that's in North America, and everything else we're just going to accept at their defaults. So default sizes, default networking, we're not bothered about any of that. It's just the location that we're trying to test. So I'll just flick through these screens, say next, 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 and we'll get to the summary window. So I chose the default size for the virtual machine. I just went next, 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 next through the step 3, so settings all default. And here at the summary window, and again, there's location, North Central US. Now, slightly annoying here, it says all validation tests are passed. And if I say OK, it's going to start to build the virtual machine. And what I expect is that it'll get part way through the process and then hopefully give me an error because the location is not on one of my 2 locations that are allowed for this resource group. So if I say OK here, everything looks to be working okay. You know, it'll go off, and back on the dashboard, we'll see this object being start to get created. But hopefully, pretty quickly, we'll receive an error. And this error, there you go, the error's popped up there. This error pops up. We don't get a right lot of extra information about this, to be honest. I can see just the VM creation has failed. We can see some details, but it doesn't give you a ton of information of why that error occurred. But that's a policy in action then. We apply the policy to the resource group, and the resource group prevented me from creating that VM. Genius. Now I'm not going to do it, but if I did try and create a virtual machine that was, or any resource in one of the European regions, it would work. Now let's go back to the ISC, because there's another example I want to show you. So back in the ISC then, we've got another example. The first, again, 7 lines now are signing to RM and providing a set of credentials that will be used later on for the policy to sign to the tenant, or for the policy engine to sign to the tenant to apply the policy. And then we have our policy. Now notice this time we've got if, and then now any of statement. So if any of location equals North Europe, or location equals West Europe. So as we create a resource, it's looking for these 2 locations, then effect deny. So in the previous example, we said, look, the location attribute has to be North Europe, has to be West Europe. If anything else, deny. This example is saying it cannot be these. It can't be North Europe, it can't be West Europe. If you try use them, deny. Genius. Now, there's tons of examples of these policies online. In fact, if I just collapse this, you can see at the bottom here, we've included a link, and we might put that link in the description as well field of this video, and this will take you to the documentation part of the Azure portal, sorry, the Azure website. Lots more information about these policies there. I've also included in this code that I will leave on screen for a second, lines sort of 35 down to 47. We've got PowerShell command that's there for viewing the policies using the get commands, viewing the definitions, and removing the policies and removing definitions as well. So playing around with these policies. My advice: create a resource group, use mine as examples, and I'll give them a go. After that, just play around with the information on the Azure portal and see what these things can do. I'm sure these features will get added to in the future, and I would expect to see these in the GUI as well at some point. So that's it. Please feel free to subscribe to my channel if you like this video. We've got a second video coming online today, so it should be there as we speak, that also looks at Azure Resource Manager, and a second feature that's going to allow us to export Resource Manager templates from inside the portal. So you might want to check out that video next. Alright, thank you very much. Bye bye.